Welcome to the Girls Marketing Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things marketing and the perfect backing track to your workday. Every week, we get up close and personal with marketers revolutionising the industry so you can learn from the best in the game. From the latest marketing trends to building a successful marketing career, no topic is off limits. At Girls in Marketing, we champion progress, inspire change, and encourage women to take the marketing world by storm. Check out our website and membership to learn more and get involved, as we'd love to welcome you to our inner circle. Right, let's dive into another episode together. Hello and welcome back to the Girls in Marketing podcast. Today we're going to be talking all about prioritising wellbeing and mental health. So how do we avoid burnout? How do we make sure we prioritise mental health as a marketer? So the first question I've kind of want to put out to the group is how do you guys prioritise your mental health, your wellbeing, working in such a fast-paced industry because, you know, it's overwhelmingly fast-paced sometimes?
Yeah, I think it's really hard whatever part of marketing that you are in. I think obviously from me talking from a social media perspective, it's really hard because you go from like obviously being all in social from 9 to 5, then you go home, then you go and scroll on TikTok, then you go scroll on Instagram, then you go scroll on whatever. Like when you go from being in a job in social media to then chilling out in social media, it doesn't necessarily feel like chilling out in social media anymore, especially because it might not, like you might have like a separate work account to your normal personal accounts, but even like on your personal accounts, you're seeing trends that are like, oh, that could be relevant for work, that could be good for this, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's really hard to switch off if you're constantly within the same kind of environment that you work in. Especially obviously social media is like the most obvious one. But I think there's a couple of things that you can do, obviously, is to come off social media. That's the most obvious thing. But it's obviously easier said than done. And I feel like passive scrolling is a massive thing. But something that I've kind of started to do recently is like spending my time intentionally and like intentionally switching off and like saying to myself, okay, now I am watching TV and I'm just watching TV. I'm not going on my phone, because then you could put a film on and then the next thing it's gone 2 hours by and you're still there scrolling and you've not registered the film in your head. You don't feel like you've actually taken a rest because you've still got your phone going. And I'm so bad for that myself. Like I feel like I constantly need like something in my hand when I'm watching TV. So yeah, I feel like it's being intentional with your time and like intentionally switching off is kind of what works for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think something that you said, Liv, about how fast-paced the marketing industry can be, I think sometimes that can be detrimental to your kind of well-being and can kind of make you feel a bit burnt out, in the sense that I think it's really important to have a really good understanding of like your personal and your team's capacity, and trying not to get too carried away with all of the changes that are always happening in the marketing industry and trying to feel like you've always got to be involved in all of them. You know, thinking about what actually works for your business, what your business's priorities are, what your team's strengths are, what currently actually works for you, and maintaining that focus on that, and not being too swept up in trying to do everything and just to be a part of it, because you're seeing conversations happening on LinkedIn about people, you know, using these new marketing trends or technologies or types of marketing or updates in this area or that. I mean, I think it's so important to stay abreast of things that happen in the marketing industry. I think it's really important for your development. But if you find that overwhelming or that it's too detrimental, maybe think about the sources of information you're getting, what you're being exposed to, so that you don't, I don't know, I feel like you end up not celebrating your own wins and your achievements because you're constantly thinking, but I'm not doing that and I haven't yet done that and we haven't considered this. So I think it's just, trying to always focus on what your capacity is, what you're capable of, and celebrating what you are doing well without always trying to stretch yourself further.
Do you have that burning desire to create a website for a new idea but don't have any coding experience? Don't worry, I've got you. Hostinger is a sponsor of today's episode, and they have created an AI website builder tool allowing anyone who wants to take their idea online to do so with zero coding skills. Just write 3 sentences to sum up what you're looking for, and Hostinger does the rest. The AI even offers personalized suggestions on layout, design, and content. Bring your new idea to life by heading to hostinger.com/girlsinmarketing and use the exclusive code girlsinmarketing for 10% off your plan. What's stopping you?
I think echoing what Kira said, I do try and switch off. So I do that by I always leave my phone in another room, because I do that where I'm watching something and I haven't even watched it because I'm on my phone. So I put it in another room. I think another really good thing to do is like get outside, especially if you're working from home or you're hybrid. Even if you're in the office, to be fair, instead of sitting at your desk eating your lunch on your laptop, breaking up the day by going for a walk, even if you go in the shop, or just going outside for like 5 minutes. I think it's good to break up the day, get that fresh air, because I think sometimes if you sit there and you're just looking at the screen, you become stagnant or you overwhelm yourself, because you're almost like switching yourself off, because you are just looking at the screen thinking, I've got so much to do.
Yeah. I think another thing that I have only really noticed kind of, I guess, quite recently, so my kind of personal situation has changed. I've had a child in the past kind of year, and I feel like sometimes I'll now reflect on maybe some of the things that worked for me in terms of prioritising my well-being and avoiding burnout and stuff that probably maybe wouldn't now, or I wouldn't have the time for. And sometimes I'll now see things in a really different light. So I might see someone sharing advice on LinkedIn about, you know, as a marketer, this is what you can do. And I think it's so important to remember that there's no one size fits all, because the things I did previously, I wouldn't have time for now. They just wouldn't be anywhere near the top of the list of my priorities, unfortunately, as much as I might like to. So don't feel too, you know, oh, I'm not prioritising my well-being because I'm not going for 2-hour long walks every day, and, you know, and I'm not taking baths every evening and whatever else, because that might not be what works for you. So really try and hone in on how you can prioritise your well-being and what actually works.
I think you've got to be realistic, haven't you? And as you say, it is so unique to everyone. It's like with anything, really.
Exactly. And I think for me, that might just be kind of like, you know, really kind of focusing on setting clear work boundaries, and you know, when I'm working, when I'm not working, I'm not. And that might just be something that it works for you at the moment, or for me, you know, just enjoying a hot drink like for like 5-10 minutes with some peace and quiet is actually so good for my well-being at the moment. So it's working out what works.
I love the fact that you said it changes as well. 100%. And I think identifying that it changes, you know, whatever it is, even if you don't go through like something as life-changing as having like a baby, regardless, like your life changes so much and your career changes so much, and your priorities and your well-being will change so much throughout even the course of like a few years. You know, I'm so different now to how I was like 4 years ago. And I think when you think about that, you know, 4 years ago, the way I prioritize my well-being is totally different to now. So I think I love the fact that you said it's not a one size fits all. I think the best types of people that are able to kind of identify that is if you're self-aware. I think being self-aware is one of the best things that you can be for your well-being, because then you can kind of spot burnout. So you can say to yourself, this is too much, like I'm running on empty constantly, and understanding, okay, well, how am I going to be able to build this kind of energy back up? How am I going to be able to do this and not take it on too much as well? That's another thing, you know. Sometimes it can feel, I honestly feel it sometimes, I will say yes to loads of different things, and then it'll come to those things happening and I'm like, a few months ago I said yes to all of these things and I shouldn't have. So it's prioritising, okay, what are the things I actually want to do? Where do I actually want to be? Rather than just saying yes to everything. Like the best thing that you can be is self-aware to just avoid kind of that like burnout, really. Is there anything that you guys do that maybe if you're spotting yourself kind of running a bit low that you do that will kind of like help you or kind of make you feel like better? Or
I think work-wise, I always struggle sometimes, I think, when I've got a lot on, to prioritise my tasks, and I don't realise how important that is for me until I'm in the moment. I think I realise it a lot more now because I did used to be a one-person marketer, and obviously that can be overwhelming, especially if that's your first role as well. You're in that fight of like trying to prove yourself and like prove that you should be here and that you can do this, and oh yeah, I'll do that, and you take so much on because you want to learn. And one-person marketer, it's great for that because you do get to put your hands in so many different things, but it's so overwhelming as well. So I always just like kind of take a step back and I'm like, okay, this needs to be done today, and literally just breaking it down hour by hour, and then it becomes so much more manageable. So I think that would be my top tip in work. That's my favourite thing to do.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. Like when you are burnt out, you just think like, oh my God, my world's ending. Like there's all these things that are happening and like I can't do any of them because I can't get ahead of it. And I think, yeah, taking that step back, thinking, okay, giving yourself almost like a reality check of like, this is what needs doing, and then I can have the mental capacity to think about everything else. And I think something that I always think, and we were saying this before, weren't we, Becky?
I was going to say, you always say this to me.
We're not saving lives. We're marketers. We're not saving lives.
We're saving PDFs.
We're saving PDFs. We're not saving lives. That's the main thing you need to think. And I always think that in terms of like, oh my God, like I feel like my world's crashing down. And then it's like, actually, no, I can make this one social media graphic that needs to be done by the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like so not as deep as you imagine it to be, but in the moment it feels like so like intense.
Yeah. I think a piece of advice that I kind of always try to think of, someone said this to me, I don't know who, shout out to you if it was you, but is to, when you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling like your well-being is really not being prioritised, treat yourself like you are somebody that you would give advice to. What would you tell them to do? How would you tell them to well, obviously we said there's no one size fits all, but take your own advice, because we would be the first to say to each other if we were feeling burnt out, if we were feeling stressed, take some time, do whatever it is. Is there anything I can do to help you? We'll take something off you, like let's work it out. But when it's you feel like sometimes you can't ask for that or you can't do it yourself. So take the advice you'd give to other people, and often you'll find that it's exactly what you need.
Yeah. I think as well, something to kind of touch on before we finish up is like being an advocate for mental health in the workplace. I think, if you're in a workplace that isn't maybe so forthcoming with speaking about mental health and that sort of thing, it can be like really difficult. So I don't know if anyone's got any advice on how to be an advocate for it without feeling like they're the only person in a room that's got the mental health flag and they're waving it. Being your own boss is all about having freedom, flexibility, and independence, but it can leave you exposed. With Kingsbridge, you don't have to take on all of the business risks yourself. Kingsbridge are a sponsor of today's episode, and their team has years of experience in protecting businesses, and they have a range of packages to fit your needs. No matter what type of business you have, contractor insurance is a safety net for many business owners, and it's important that you get it right. It makes you more trustworthy too. Don't leave yourself exposed. Invest in insurance with Kingsbridge by visiting their website, kingsbridge.co.uk.
I think it's tricky, isn't it? Because some organisations you feel like it can be performative, and you don't want it to be that way. You don't have to necessarily have like a working group for mental health. It's just, I would say being an advocate is about, kind of going out of your way to like double, triple check with people, check in with people if you really feel like they're saying they're okay and they're not. And maybe raise any concerns that you feel somebody might be having with somebody who you feel might be better placed than you to support them. If you feel like they've got, too much on, or they're really struggling, but you're not the person to support them, maybe kind of flag it to somebody who may not have noticed. I think it's difficult, but I do think kind of having that awareness of others and being a supportive ear is always something that you can do to support people in the workplace.
Yeah, and I think as well, don't be worried about judgment. I think mental health now is a lot more spoken about. There's still so many barriers, 1,000,000%, but it's a lot more spoken about now. So making sure that if you are going to go into a conversation about, how you're feeling, if it is maybe, you're not feeling great at the moment and you want to talk about that, I think the type of person that you have that conversation with as well depends on how you navigate it. If your manager is, someone who is a mental health like advocate and they're like really, up for it, open, very transparent, then you can obviously talk to them about it. Whereas if you know that they're quite closed off and they're, very like corporate, then it's how you approach those conversations as well. And I think another thing that I would say is don't wait until like you feel like that to have those conversations. So just start talking about it, start being an advocate for that, for well-being, even if it's not just mental health, just well-being in general in the workplace. And then hopefully if it does come to a point where you or anyone else in the team feels like they need that help or they are struggling, that the conversations have already been had, and it's not a case of this is the first time that you've ever brought up anything to do with that. Before.
It's trying to remove those barriers and like remove the taboo that's surrounding it, isn't it? And the more conversations like this, I hope will empower more people to feel they can do something and talk about it. So that's definitely what we would love to be an outcome of these types of conversations.
And that's a wrap on another team episode. Before you forget, we'd love to make this a two-way conversation. Feel free to share your opinions on this episode with us on social media by tagging Girls in Marketing. If you did enjoy listening to our team chat about marketing, please follow and leave a review of the podcast so we can continue to grow and share more episodes like this one. Your support really does go a long way. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode, but until then, join in the conversation on social media. See you next week.